Good morning, good morning. Unannounced, I'm in front of you, but today we welcome Mr. Alamjit Singh Sekhon, who is from the Silver Jubilee batch, that's 1996 batch. We'll talk about him a little later, but before that, the board feels, the board members, that we have such a lot of talent within our old Yadavindrians. When you all will also become old Yadavindrians, the talent will still remain. And right over the years since 1948, we've had a large number of luminaries in various fields who are excelling themselves in all types of fields, from judiciary to civil services, to corporates, to sports, to any other so-called, what you call the extracurricular activities, be it art, be it designing, etc. And the current IOSA has been able to get all of them together, and what we intend to start is what's written in front of you. That's our motto. So we will have regularly the illustrious OIs coming to us and talking to us, and to interact with each one of you, and you can in turn clear your perceptions, your misconceptions, whatever, to see that how well you all can also do later in life. It's not only motivational of course, because they themselves have done so well, which itself is a motivation for each one of you, but also you can clarify doubts in whichever field they are experts in. So that's what I wanted to say, and today we are having the first of the talks by Mr. Alamjit Sekhon. That you're the privileged one to start this for us, Alamjit, and more of you, girl will talk about, will introduce you. Thank you, and kids, don't sleep, listen carefully, okay, and be interactive. All the best.
Thank you so much, sir. A very good morning to everyone present here today. I, Ikisha Aluwalia, Deputy Head Girl YPS, once again extend a very warm welcome to our guest speaker for today, an alumnus of Yadavindra Public School, Mr. Alamjit Singh Sekhon, ICSE 1996 batch. And a very gracious and warm welcome to our IOSA executives, Mr. Adish Bajaj, Dr. Mona Gurkiran and Dr. Mona Gurkiran Garewal. We are honored to have you all with us today. To all the students sitting here, we're all very well aware that when we leave this esteemed institution, we become old Yadavindrians. And the body that helps us stay connected to our alma mater is HSN Yadavindra Old Students Association, better known as IOSA, which has been a source of constant support and camaraderie for all Yadavindrians. For us students, it is a golden opportunity to interact and consequently draw from the experiences of old Yadavindrians. IOSA not only develops students to be responsible leaders of tomorrow, but also assists the school management in the provision of quality education. The association, presided over by our esteemed member of Board of Governors, Colonel R.P.S. Brar, aims to keep the OYs connected with the school in an all-out effort to make YPS Patiala an institution of excellence, prominence, and unity so as to be second to none. We remain indebted to IOSA for this. Our guest speaker for today, Mr. Alamjit Singh Sekhon, is an alumnus of YPS Patiala, ICSE 96. He spent 11 years in YPS, from prep to class 10th, in-house DRH. During his schooling, he was an active participant in all the school activities, from sports to co-curriculars. He is an engineer from Thapar Institute of Engineering, Patiala, and has to his credit an MBA from IIM Lucknow. Mr. Alamjit Singh Sekhon heads the Bell India business as the commercial director for Bell. He started working with Bell 5 years back as their first employee in India, tasked with setting up the business here. Bell is a 150-year-old company in the dairy snacking space and has iconic brands like the Laughing Cow, Kiri, Baby Bell, Go-Go Squeeze, and Borson. The first launch in India from Bell has been the 100-year-old iconic Laughing Cow brand. This year itself, the brand's team has won 7 awards in different forums for their work, including the French Group of the Year award from the French Minister of Commerce. Prior to Bell, Mr. Sekhon has worked with other large multinationals like Nestle and Kellogg's. With Nestle, he handled the Maggi Noodles portfolio across India and the South Asia region. He worked in some iconic award-winning campaigns like Me and Mary Maggie that helped make Maggie a household name in India. And he also worked in a global role at their headquarters in Switzerland. After Nestle, he worked with another Fortune 500 company, Kellogg's. During this period, he also launched Pringles in India and worked with some industry stalwarts like Deepika Padukone for Special K and Chef Ranveer Brar. He also serves as the chairman of the Consumer Goods Committee of the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Alamjit has had the privilege of hoisting the Indian tricolour in the Arctic region with the National Geographic Channel by winning an adventure reality series, Mission Arctic, a feat that is indeed prideful for all Yadvindrians. He also co-founded an NGO, Cheshtha, that works to uplift the underprivileged. I now request Mr. Alamjit Sekhon to kindly address the gathering as the first speaker of our Vidya, Vinay, Veerta talks. Please.
Thank you so very much for this extremely kind and warm introduction and the very, very warm welcome back to school. So first of all, good morning and thank you. Director Sir, Mr. Bajaj, who I've had the privilege of interacting during my schooling out here, all the other faculty members, the IOSA members, and a very, very special and warm good morning to all the future leaders, would be possible entrepreneurs or leaders in their own fields sitting out here, all of you students. So it's my pleasure and privilege to be here today. And well, I wasn't aware this is the first Vidya Vinay Veerta talk, so maybe it's a double pleasure for me to be out here with you and to share my experiences. So thank you for having me out here. It brings me back to a time when I was also studying in YPS, and I never thought that possibly 25 years as I complete my silver jubilee, I thought maybe there'll be a reunion, but I never thought I'd be here sharing something with you. So the idea today is to have a conversation with you, as General Verma said, your director, and for me to share my experiences. So please make it a conversation that is interactive, something wherein you ask questions, and I'll be very, very happy to share my experiences, my thoughts, and whatever I feel. So when I was passing out of YPS, and I passed out of here in class 10, I was wondering, okay, what should I do? And one of the fields that I was thinking of that was coming into my mind was engineering. And Thapar College is right here in Patiala. My dad used to work with a company called Crompton Greaves. And Crompton is a Thapar company. I thought life is set. Life is set because being an employee, there used to be some kind of quota that, okay, if someone is serving in the organization, there could be a direct admission out there into engineering. So that was my dream. Everything was set. Dad's working there 2 decades. And suddenly, that dream came crashing down. So I was very complacent that life is all okay, and Thapar is the best college for engineering within the Punjab region. So what really happened was that I was counting on something, and times change. The Supreme Court of India overruled and said no reservation on these accounts. And suddenly, 6 months to the admission process, or maybe even lesser to the admission process, I realized, oh gosh, I haven't even prepared. And what do I really do? Something that I was counting on as a career option. And would it be like I need to spend some more time, study, repeat? What do I do? Because it was like a comfort factor that was there. So anyhow, I had to dig deep a little bit. Somehow managed to scrape through. So while I passed out of Thapar, somehow managed to get one of the last seats in a discipline called civil engineering. Now that really wasn't my first choice. In those days, and I think even right now, the first choice that people have is to pass out in computers and software. Everyone used to talk about the software boom, Infosys, TCS, companies like Cognizant, these companies which were there. And suddenly, okay, it was just by a sheer stroke of luck, last counseling, get one of the last seats. And perhaps partly what helped me was the fact that a few months, or 2 to 3 months, just to this entrance exam, I said, okay, what do I make of it right now? Can I just say, okay, fate has conspired against me and give up? Or at least try and dig deep and salvage what I could of the situation? So that's how I ended up in Thapar. In YPS, I had in those days something like a 90% in class 10th. So I was very, very complacent. I said, "Theek hai, in those days, it was considered as a reasonably good score, not outstanding. I think these days scores are even higher. And in class 12th, actually, because I was so complacent, I came out with a 60%. I came with a 60%. I was given 1 mark for division improvement. It still is on my mark sheet. It says, grace marks awarded for division improvement. And I passed in one of the subjects on the passing mark. So I'm just telling you what complacency at times can do. And this is what it did to me. From a 90 to a 60, from a place where I was counting on a career to, okay, what really can happen? And I think I'll take another parallel out here. Some of you may be thinking, okay, we have something to count upon, something within the family. Sometimes some land, sometimes some business, sometimes this thing. But all I'm trying to share with you in terms of sharing my experience is that in these matters of a career, always try and have a plan B. Do not only count on what is there. What is there is there. But I think what's more important is what you make of yourself and how you can also add back to that with what you make of yourself. So that's what I wanted to kind of share in terms of how complacency can actually, or counting on saying, "Theek hai, I have something at home." Because we grow up in a very, very protected environment. Our parents and family are always there to support us. And we feel, okay, life will be made, life will be very easy. But sometimes real life is a lot more different than what we can ever imagine it to be. And I'll give you another example. Sometimes you talk about business or anything. Has any of you heard of the name Kodak, the company Kodak? Yeah? So at one time, Kodak used to be within the top 20 companies in the world. Top 20, right? And it was a company which, when it went bankrupt in 2012, was having a history of about maybe 130 to 140 years. So if a company which is so large can be bankrupt, so things can always happen. So therefore, I'm just saying, have that plan B, think through what you want to do in terms of your career. And education, which is what you are in right now, is one of those most important things that help. So focus on it. maybe then I'll just talk through what happened after that, because what I'm going to talk through is more my journey ever since I passed out from YPS to what I do right now, and some lessons that I got in life from there. So started engineering. Now, when I started this jolt that I got, which was about my marks, just about passing in class 12, just about getting into engineering, it kind of woke me up. And it was good that I got that jolt in life at that time when I did. Because at that time, I could still take some corrective action, still do something about it. So I said, okay, let me focus. And the focus that I decided to do at that time was, okay, let me get back in terms of studies and at the same time not neglect what are the other curriculars. So within, I think, 6 months, I became a scholarship holder at Thapar Institute, within just about getting in out there. So a few months later, and this wasn't the case that I was just studying out there. I think I was a part of each and every activity, be it dramatics, be it any of the extracurriculars, debates, anything cultural, anything with the literary societies, even doing a lot of social work. So it's about always having the balance, and at the same time, I was also a part of some of the inter-university squads, especially in soccer, basketball. So it's not about the fact that you can only do one thing. I think life is always about this balance, that how does it that you can make the most of the facility that gets provided to you. And I think that was something that was instilled in me by YPS, because we had this fantastic infrastructure, which I don't think too many schools in the country have. You know, sometimes when you have something, you don't value it. Like they say in Punjabi, kar di murgi dal barabar. You know, you may not really value it. I'll give you an example from Bombay, which is where I live right now. You know, the stadium that we have out here, most schools the entire size, including the ground, will be just the size of the stadium. So let alone having this kind of infrastructure, or an amphitheater, or things like horse riding or swimming, which happen out here. So this is what I was just trying to relate with in terms of the fact that, okay, YPS had this great infra, and it also gave me the opportunity to participate in a lot of activities which I did even later in life. So yeah, so I was there studying in Thapar, doing this, focusing on my civil engineering, trying to also learn the most that I could and have a good time in my college life. At the same time, I had a vision. So in life, it's always important that, okay, what's your vision? What is it that you want to be? And that vision may evolve, but it's important because that allows you to focus on what do you want to do. So the vision I had was, okay, I still want to do software. I still want to be a software engineer. Now, civil engineering is about making buildings and things like this auditorium or roads. So what does it got to do with software? So I said, how do I get there? Let me approach the faculty of computer engineering on my own accord and say, I want to attend some of the important lectures myself. And nobody stops you. I just used to walk into class during my free time, attend that class, and I was scoring in that subject higher than the students in computer engineering themselves, because that was my passion. And that is what I really wanted to do. So this was happening. Again, life was set, good scholarship holder, good CV, one of the best, looking forward to the placements. And suddenly, another act happened. Do you remember the date 9/11? Okay, 9/11, yeah. So infamous date wherein Osama bin Laden suddenly decided that he didn't want to see the Twin Towers. And what that led to, aside from this unfortunate event where so many people lost their lives, was the fact that the software industry saw a recession. There I was, just about to pass out of Thapar Institute, and we enter a place and doing my whatever computer engineering, and just about as I'm passing out, the software industry has a recession. I'm like, oh God, what is happening? People who passed out a few months before me, some of them did not have a job. Some of the people who had been offered a job, they were told, sorry, it doesn't exist any longer, we'll see when we can hire you back. And in some good colleges, there is a thing called campus placement, where the companies come into the campus, they interact with the students, and after they interact with the students, they hire them. So when they came in for campus placements, the few companies that came, for software, they said, sorry, we have very little requirement. We're not going to be open to civil engineers, regardless of your grades, regardless of your CV and qualification. And that's what I meant in terms of having a plan B. And sometimes life has these twists of fates that you cannot envisage. Who could have ever thought something like this would happen, and the impact that it could have, that software industry recession? So I said, okay, what to do right now? What's happened has happened. So any which ways, I started working basis my civil engineering in a company called Abhishek Industries. In between, I also worked on some road sites, by the way. I also worked on building in other schools, so it's a part of the civil work I did, and then I worked with a company called Abhishek Industries based in Barnala. And then my plan changed, and it was like, okay, software is going to be a stepping stone for 2 to 3 years. And then I wanted to do an MBA. So it was more the time horizon, that a few years down into software, do an MBA. So the plan changed to say, okay, maybe a couple of years down after civil engineering, let me do that MBA. So it's important, therefore, that we always keep in mind your vision, and then the path to that vision may change. Maybe the path was via software, and now the path's changed to saying, okay, any job via engineering, and let me get there. So that's how it started to work after my civil engineering. So I was working then in a city called Barnala. I think you might know, about a couple of hours from here. So working there, and then I wanted to do an MBA. But I wanted to do an MBA only from one of the best institutes in India. And at that time, the Indian Institutes of Management, so there used to be about, I think, 5 or 6 of them, and they were considered as the best schools for management. And the exam that they have is called the CAT. I think some of you would have heard of it, or the Common Aptitude Test. And statistically, it is more difficult to clear CAT and get into an IIM than into Harvard Business School, which is considered as one of the best business schools of the world. But my focus was clear that this is what I wanted to do, get in and pass out of an IIM. Now, how does one do that? Sitting in a factory environment, working morning to evening. And then I said, okay, let me figure out what's the way to this goal. And the way to the goal was, you have some institutes which help you prepare. And the closest institute which helped you prepare for this entrance exam was in Chandigarh, which was a good, 3.5 hours away in those days. So Saturday night, after my shift and after my work at the factory would end, I would get into Chandigarh, spend the night out there. Sunday, spend some time attending one of the lectures in terms of, okay, what the CAT test is about, what is it that's important to study for it. And then see a recorded lecture of the day before, because it used to be like 2 days a week. Do that, and then come back, again, those 3.5 hours, back to the place where I was working. So finally, the moral of the story is I managed to get a good score, about 99.5 percentile, so which is out of the more than 200 or 2 lakh students, I would have been within the top 500 in this exam, and ended up in IIM Lucknow. So it wasn't that I was the smartest or within the top 500 people appearing for the CAT, with all humility. I think what worked for me was a few things. The first thing as a lesson is focus. That, okay, it was really, really important for me. And if it was important for me or important for yourself, that's when you start taking steps to say, okay, how do I get there? So that's one lesson that I take back. The second thing was, at times, it's not only about being smart. At times, it's about how do you approach something. It's not that the CAT exam is something which is an exam that you need to pass to get into NASA, and nobody can do it. It's simple. I think given 3 hours, everyone can do it. All of you sitting here can do it. But it just is about who can not lose their cool and attempt and get the best in those 2 hours. So I think at times we get under some pressure, and it's about the fact that, okay, how do you remain cool, calm, and composed regardless of the situation. Sometimes something like, I don't know, have you heard of this poem, If, by Rudyard Kipling? Maybe you studied it? Well, all of you are a little tired today. So yeah, if is this poem, and then it talks about it, when people are losing their heads and you keep your cool. So that's what inspired me at that moment, and it's about being calm and composed at a time like that, and seeing, okay, how do I get the best out of a situation like this? So that's another thing I thought I'll share with you, which is about not being the smartest, but more about regaining your composure at a tough situation and continuing with focus. And it also linked in with this. So passed out of, so MBA was great, 2 years at IIM Lucknow. Passed out of there with majoring in marketing, finance, and operations. At that time, when I joined in, I wasn't very clear, okay, what is it that I really want to do? Somewhere during the studies, I realized that marketing was my forte, and marketing was my passion. And that's when I applied to these marketing companies that came in, and gotten into Nestle, which was the world's largest food company at that time, as a management trainee. Now, what really helped me during this interview process? What really helped me is that in most of these interviews, one of the first rounds that you have is a group discussion. And again, in IIM Lucknow, I wasn't the smartest. There were a lot of other people much, much smarter than me. And in this group discussion and interview, it's actually partly a test of your composure, your confidence, and what is it that you know that you can reflect to the other people who are there on the other end. So, and I think that's where I really gained in confidence from the different activities that I did while in school, while in college. I think coming out here and speaking or debates and dramatics, it gives you a certain kind of confidence that you feel, okay, if I've done this, then speaking to the other person who's an interviewer, who may be giving you your job, is a piece of cake. And therefore, it's important not only about what you know, but how calm and composed you are in terms of this tough situation and how you can reflect this. And I could find that edge of difference between people who passed out of other places and still being much smarter, but not being able to reflect exactly what they knew. And it's a life skill, actually. Today you may say, okay, why is it that when you're sitting out here in school, that, okay, I get X percentage in my boards, 10th or 12th, and that's all that's important. But actually not. And you may say, okay, why is sports important? Why is any of the curricular activities that you do important? I can tell you from a real life example that they're important because it instills a certain confidence in you, it kind of helps you with the overall personality. And that's what counts when you go in for that interview. And that's what counts not only during an interview, but it also counts during your regular work, because when I'm working in an organization, I'm not working alone. I'm working with my team. And in organizations, teams are much, much larger. And you need to know how to interact with them when you're playing a team sport. That's what you do. You count upon your people who are there with you in the team. And each of them has a designated role. And that's what I think sports also does. So that's the reason it's important that it's, when you're studying, make the most of what you get, rather than thinking that maybe it's only academics that is important. So it's about always this balance. So passed out from IIM Lucknow, joined Nestle into what was called a management trainee batch. And it's not only important doing an MBA, because sometimes doing it from an institute also matters. Because you may say, okay, what's the difference between education? And the example that I can give you there is that people who would have passed out from another institute, and I will not name something, excepting the IIMs, would start at a salary grade and a job grade, which would be 8 to 10 years behind at times. Now, things would have changed, but it's not only about saying, okay, I want to do an MBA, but it at times also matters in terms of where you do it from, because of the kind of education and holistic development. And that's what I'm trying to tell you also in terms of maybe schooling, that where and how, what you take out of it makes a lot of difference. So that's what I did, joined into Nestle into a management trainee batch, worked across some different locations. And experiences you get in these companies are wonderful. I think I've had, within Nestle, the pleasure and privilege of working in different parts of India. I worked in Kerala, I worked in Goa, I worked in the Northeast, I've gone for work to Ladakh, I worked in Switzerland, I worked in Southeast Asia. So the kind of exposure you get when you are into these places and companies and organizations like this is humongous. And it's not just that you're going to be sitting at one place and getting bored. I think I had a great time with Nestle, learned a lot from a lot of my managers, learned a lot from my contemporaries. And within Nestle, I worked on a brand which is called Maggi, so was introduced a few minutes back. And I'm sure all of you have had Maggi noodles. Yes, no? Okay, maybe it may not be allowed in school, but at least at home. Yes or no? Ah, okay, thanks. I thought some of you were partly asleep. So I worked on Maggi, and you may say, what exactly is marketing? So I was into this field called marketing and sales. And marketing is partly like running your own business. It just is, you're running a business, but the money is not yours. The money is put up by someone. You're responsible for the profitability, you're responsible for the scale up of the brand or business, and which includes, okay, how do I advertise, how do I sell, where do I sell? So it's like some kind of a business management with someone else's money. And a lot of people think at times that marketing is just about making an ad. This is a question I get sometimes when I go teach in business schools. But marketing is not about creating an ad. Making an ad is maybe just a small part of what you do. It's much more. I think it teaches you a lot in terms of how to handle and develop a business. And when it comes to advertising, it's an integral and important part which creates what's called a brand demand. And during this, I've also had the privilege of working with stalwarts like Mr. Amitabh Bachchan or Shojit Sarkar in terms of creating some of these ads on Maggi. But it's only a part of it. And, okay. One of the other things I can share with you is that sometimes all of these careers are also misunderstood. So when I was working in Nestle, I was in Gurgaon. Somebody came home, so I have my home still in Punjab, in Sangrur, and said, okay, what's your son doing? Ah, okay, he's with Nestle. And the association they had with Nestle was, oh, Mogge Dudh Wali Company. And that's the association that people might have. Mogge Dudh Wali Company. Acha ji, what does Kaka do? Oh, he doesn't do milk collection. Oh, okay, he doesn't work in the factory, so what does he do? And in a simple manner, they said, acha, kagjan da kam karda hoega. This was the verbatim. In a way, very politely saying he must be a clerk there somewhere. So it's not about what people perceive. I think it's more about what a corporate life can be. It can be quite different from sometimes what people may think out here. And it's about managing a business. And Maggi as a business, by the time I left, was about $500 million, working on that. So imagine handling your own company of $500 million, which would be in rupee terms, maybe more than 3,000 crores, bigger than most other companies. So it's about the fact that what's the kind of kick that you may get of doing it and excitement of working on something like this versus in a corporate job. So just was trying to give a flavor of what this is. And I'm happy to also, if you will have more questions on what is marketing, what is sales, what does this entail later in, to talk through that. So that's what I did. Maybe a couple of other interesting anecdotes I can share at that time. It's a lot about how you trust and be honest with your team, with your consumers, with your customers. It's about giving them the best product. Because if the product isn't good, you won't like it, and you will eventually say, I won't buy it. And one of the campaigns we ran, we said, okay, let's, today Maggi is only known for 2 minutes. There's no emotional association of consumers. Let's ask consumers to send us back their Maggi stories. And till that time, it always was about 2 minutes, about how their Maggi was special. And people told me that it was crazy. Some people thought that how will a campaign like this work? But sometimes it's important to have that trust and that courage to take a decision which may not be the most popular. We took it, and we were all overwhelmed by the consumer love. People wrote back stories and stories. In those days, there was no social media. They emailed us, they sent us postcards. They sent us stuff on the website, etc., etc. And the reward that they had was, if they share the story, they were not going to get any money. They were only and only going to be featured on the Maggie packaging or a Maggie ad. And that's the only reward that there was. So people said, there's no monetary reward. How will the participation be? And it worked wonders. Actually, in those days, without any social media, this connected so very much with the audience or with the consumers that from somewhere or the other, they found my phone number. I don't know how, till date. And suddenly I had phone calls saying, can you please feature me? I'm so-and-so, who knows so-and-so, who knows so-and-so, like that. So that just shows that when sometimes you trust people, trust the others around, and have the courage to stick to your convictions, what might happen. And that became one of the best campaigns ever. And now there is a lot more that happens across different brands with it. So we did a bit of this. And it isn't that even at that time, I was only and only focusing on work. There was work, of course, but there is more to life than work. And one of the things that I was doing at that time was also having some personal travel across the country. I'm a certified PADI diver, which means that you do undersea diving and see the marine life and corals. And along with this is the time when I participated with the National Geographic. They were running an adventure reality series. It was called Mission Arctic, in terms of somebody who would go to the Arctic. So I participated in that, and companies do understand. They give you the time off, and I'm thankful to Nestle for doing that. So they gave me the time off at that time to follow my passion. So when this Mission Arctic thing came in, and what happened at that time was they said only and only people who are below 30 can apply, and I was about 32, 33 at that time. So I had this very strict rules. Now, again, I could do two things. I could say, fine, this is a rule, and if it's a rule, it applies to all, and what I would like to do, which is to go to the Arctic, will not really happen. But I think it depends upon the kind of passion you have. So there I was, went into the National Geographic Channel's office, went in for the selection process, and I told them, I said, look, I've been interested in the outdoors. This is something like a dream come true for me. And this is the reason. I had a list of reasons as to why I need to be there. And after an initial round of no's, because I did not take no for an answer, among the thousands of people that applied for it, they eventually considered my application. So when the series actually started, I was the only person who was above that prescribed age limit. And not only that, at that point of time, what also happened was that to get to some place like this, you need to be reasonably fit. So I was even more unfit than what I am right now, and I had a dream to go to the Arctic. So the reality was somewhere, the dream was somewhere else. And the only person who would hoist their flag would be the one who would win the show. And now, I'll come to that later. So at that time, it was about the focus to say, okay, if this is my vision, and this is where I want to be, how do I get there? It was about then getting back in terms of, okay, some amount of fitness. So I was still working while I was preparing for it. I would cycle down to work, something that I would usually do about 11 odd kilometers there. Come back on the way, stop by for a swim for about an hour and a half, get home, continue my fitness regime, and then after that, sleep. And all while working on a brand so that I could take my time off later. So it was only about, again, the focus and the fact that how we made that plan to get there. So a few months later, because there was a gap between the selection and when the journey actually started, and that's the time that I used to to get ready and get prepared. So went in for the journey. The way the show was organized was you had certain tasks to do. So it's not like what you might hear about some of the other reality series, some voting, etc. So it was maybe a different time. You just had to do the task, which is maybe climb a waterfall or have a rafting race or a kayaking race or maybe dog sledding race. So they were the kind of activities that we did. And whoever did it, whoever could not complete the task or whoever did it in the slowest time would be eliminated. So that's the format that was there. And as it went, I just kept on focusing on improving myself so that I could be the best or I could reach my potential. And that's how, among all the participants, and the participant field included people who were a lot younger, a lot fitter. There was one guy, he had cycled in those days from Bombay to Leh. He'd cycled and he was doing that to promote a green environment, and that's the reason he cycled down. So there are people like these who were also there at that point of time. And at the end, I won. And at the end, it was a really, really proud moment when I hoisted the Indian tricolour in the Arctic. So it's not about what I did. I think it's about what I wanted to share with you is that it may sound very, very difficult, what you may have in mind. But aim high as to what you want to do. And after that, you'll find a way to get there. So don't let your aim be lowered. So aim high. And then it's more about taking that step back and thinking through and saying, okay, what is it that, how is it that I can prepare to get to where I want to be? And that's what helped me to get there. So that's a little bit about what happened about the Arctic. And I think some of the values that I got in from school also helped a lot. Because I think one of the values that we had, and I still remember this board, as you walk in, which is the saying of Baron de Coubertin, which talks about the Olympics, and it's not about winning, it's about the spirit of participation. It's about the fair play. And there were a couple of places wherein one of my competitors who was there, he lost a piece of equipment which was necessary for that task. And it could have been a very easy win for me. I'm like, okay, he's lost it. I have nothing to worry. Let me just go about and do what I have to do. But what I did was I shared what I had with him. It wasn't about the spirit of only winning at all costs. It was about the spirit of winning while doing something you could be proud of. And I think that's something that I carry back again, associated with YPS and what I did out here. It's not about the spirit of only winning at all cost, but about participating in with the right spirit. So that's what happened with Mission Arctic and the story of hoisting the tricolour. And a lot of it goes in with, so while this talk is the inaugural talk of Vidya, Vinay, Veerta, I think most of what I talk to you is linked in with this beautiful motto of IPS, of Vidya, Vinay, and Veerta. Vidya, of course, being the wisdom. And part of the wisdom comes in from learning and education, which is what YPS instilled in me and gave me, and I'm always thankful for that. And this only comes in with humility, with the humility that you may not be the most perfect, and that there is always going to be more and more to learn. It's not about I, me, myself. It's about the humility with which you may accept, okay, this is the mistake I made, and this is where I am, and this is what I need to improve. Or having this virtue of fair play. So it's about doing it in a virtuous manner, which is what Vinay stands for. And then there is this aspect of Veerta, or courage. And the courage, I think, reflects in terms of many, many things. It's about the courage to deal with adversity. You may say, I have courage, but that courage stands for nothing till the time adversity strikes. And that's when the true courage gets tested. So in terms of maybe the kind of situations that I faced about admission, or even when I was talking about Arctic, I'll give you maybe, okay, so this is courage. And that's something, again, that the motto of the school continued to inspire me through my life. So when I was in this, again, Mission Arctic, one of these activities we were doing, and I was the first person who had to do this activity, which was kayak down somewhere in the rapids. And after that, you had to cross over the river and go over and climb a rope ladder for a few meters in conditions which were negative, wearing only a simple wetsuit. That's all one had. So I was doing that. Suddenly, again, I don't know what happened. The rapids, I got stuck there, overturned. My kayak overturned. I hit my head on the rocks below. I lost a tooth. Partly was badly jolted. I had to cross over the river. My kayak was out. I had to cross the river on foot rather than on the kayak in icy cold water and then climb up. It was easy at that time to give up. And it's always going to be easy to give up. But the point is not about giving up. And that's where courage comes in. And that's what it is about, okay, can I, and how do I do it ahead? So continue to be inspired by, I would say, the Vidya, Vinay, Veerta, because not many places have this pedagogy as YPS and the kind of infrastructure. So this was, and around the world, there is a lot that you can see and do. So part of my travels have taken me to a place in the Andamans, where today as well, there is an island in India which exists, that where the people there have no contact with civilization. It's called Sentinel Island. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, and they still live as hunter-gatherers. So there are beautiful places and lost places all around. And I think if one travels, one just opens your horizons to what all is there. So, and I think that's a streak that came into me from the trekking that used to happen out here. I think that's what I've tried to continue in terms of still going on some travels to off the beaten path places, trekking in Nepal, trekking in Arunachal as well. At times I have not met a single soul for 4 to 5 days while I've been on these treks. So, and all of this can happen while you're still working. It's not that, there are two different compartments. So therefore, I talk about this balance, which is about everything together. So post Nestle, wherein I worked also internationally, I then worked with Kellogg's. You heard about Pringles, launched that, and then decided to take on the Splunge, which was about this brand called the Laughing Cow. Again, somewhere the value of courage and belief in myself helped me. Because while the Laughing Cow and Bell was a global leader within cheese, it wasn't known in India. And starting something is always difficult. But starting something also gives you a certain satisfaction. And a certain satisfaction that, okay, I created something. And that's how I ended up out here with the Laughing Cow. And I've been privileged that they chose me for the job. And it's been a great moment for me in terms of the last 5 years, building the team, helping build the business. Still not quite available in Patiala, but maybe soon. So we have something that you might enjoy after this talk in terms of some of the products. And again, it's more about what your self-belief is in terms of doing or taking on some of these activities. And continuing, so maybe the difference is that with Nestle, I was more handling brands and marketing, and here I handle the overall operation. So that's how you also kind of, in a way, grow with your career. So, yeah, and here again, maybe to share an anecdote or so. So the cheese category in India is pretty small, and everyone just has the usual formats. There is slices, there is blocks. And the price that they start with is about 100 rupees. And nobody ever thought of saying, let's make a single serve of cheese, because when consumers consume cheese, they consume one serving at a time. Because when you'll make a sandwich, you need one portion at a time. So we said, okay, let's think of it with courage in a different manner. And let's launch a single serve of cheese, priced at rupees 10, which can take cheese to every household. And at times what happens is that when you take this path, which is not what people think it to be, it requires that courage. And that's what I think, again, the Veerta and the wisdom aspect, because the wisdom helps you decide what's right. And then it's about sticking to your belief. And then this product is already doing pretty well. Or the fact that how we built the brand in terms of using a different approach has also helped, which is why we got about 7 different awards within just this year itself. And that's the journey with the Laughing Cow. And sorry, this. And yeah. So all in all, that's what I wanted to share with you in a short manner, and also leave a little bit of time and space for questions. And within this, I'd also like to thank once again IOSA, because they're the ones who made it happen. And when I passed out of school, at that time, I think it's important that we can retain this bond and connect that we have with our alma mater and to give back. There are many other institutions where I see that this really helps, because your alumni then help you when it comes to a network within jobs, a network in terms of, okay, what's the opening, even sharing to say this is how you could approach something. And I think that's a part which is being taken forward a lot by IOSA, and also the kind of how special they make you feel now to be here. So I'm just talking about my life experiences. I don't even have a written speech, maybe a few pointers. So pardon my errors and all in between, because it was meant to be a conversation. And but yeah, the team really made me feel special. So with this, I'd like to open it up for your questions. I'm going to be happy to answer anything. And about questions, there's one belief that I have. And the one belief that I have is that some of you may think, oh, what if I ask this question? But there is no bad question. The only bad question, you know what's the bad question? No? Someone? The bad question is the one we don't ask. And we go back within our heart saying, I wish I asked this. So please don't think about the bad question. Ask what you'd like to. Yeah, please tell me.
First of all, thank you. You talked a lot about the Nestle, and I wanted to ask how the workers are getting paid and how much they work, because they are also very important for such a big business and concern. So yeah, that's my question.
Thank you for being the first one and showing the courage to ask. Thank you. And well, if I understand, the question is more about how we take care of the people within Nestle and how much they are paid. I'm really sorry, I wouldn't know the salary levels that they are paid, but the belief that Nestle has is that any employee is very, very important to us, or even the other organizations that I've worked. And as such, it's important to take care of them and have a kind of a benefit policy for them, which is competitive or maybe better than what they may be getting. So it's not, and so in terms of the salaries, they'll be getting, compared to, how do I put it, the similar qualifications, similar roles, at par or higher, but kept in a manner wherein, with care, with respect, because that's what people also want. Not only what goes in as your paycheck, but how and what are you respected about? How and what is your career option, and how do you grow within that? I'll give you an example of, while I worked for a short time in a factory environment, of somebody who was a salesman and within my team. And so within sales, the way it's organized is that you have these people who'll go to the store physically, and they visit about 40 to 50 stores in a day. They say, okay, this is, do you have this, do you have this? And that's the reason why the product is available, because this is the field sales which does that. And this particular gentleman was, so these people are typically employed by the distributor. And So this particular gentleman was with the distributor. He used to go to these stores, getting the order, but we could see within him a certain passion. And he had a certain vision to grow. And even for the people who are with the distributor, which may be off-roll, we still consider them as part of being our own ecosystem. And we groomed him. And today this particular person grew to handling a region within Nestle. He's still in touch with me. And he handles the state of, I think, a large chunk of Andhra Pradesh. So it's also about, and there are stories of people how they started off in the factory and then now work in the headquarters in Switzerland, becoming technical experts in their own right. So it's about an overall holistic thing, which is about taking care of the team, believing in them, trusting in them, and having a holistic outlook for them, which involves this as well. I hope I answered this, or is there something more you'd like to know? Yes, please.
Sir, I want to ask, how did you contact with a company like Nestle?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
How did you come in contact with a company like Nestle? Like, how did you know that they were implying jobs?
Okay. So there are multiple ways that actually you can do that. So firstly, almost all companies have a career section. So you visit their website, and within their website, they have a career section. On that career section, they have typically all the jobs listed. And within those jobs, they even have the location, what is the key criteria that they want at that point of time. So, and this applies not only to, and these days there is a lot of LinkedIn, and a lot of jobs get listed on LinkedIn as well. So that's one way. In my case, I was a bit more fortunate because when I was passing out of IIM Lucknow, Nestle used to come there for a campus placement. Or actually, that is the year that they came in for a campus placement after a break. So then you apply with your CV. But the other option is also a great option, which is to see it from the career site. In fact, one of the other gentlemen that I know, he applied through that option, which is going to the career section, and he applied not only in India, he applied to the global headquarters. And he became a Switzerland-based employee because he applied for an international position. So it's about just the fact that these days with the internet, everything is very easy. Yes, please.
So at a point you said that we should have a plan A but also a plan B for a backup plan. But sometimes we can feel that plan B pulls us back from giving 100% to plan A. So what are your thoughts for that? And also, having a basics of engineering, don't you feel that you have given some mistakes to the business career? And do you really regret them?
So one part of the question is plan B, just to understand that will a plan B pull you down? And the second part in terms of engineering and mistakes, could you just repeat that one?
So my second question was that that you had a basis of engineering. You joined Thapar College for engineering basis, but you went in the career like business.
Okay.
So of course you had made mistakes. So what do you feel about those mistakes?
Okay, great. Thank you for a great question. So the first one about a plan A and a plan B, I think it's about your focus. So while there may be a plan A and a plan B, the plan A is the most important. And that's the one that you need to work on. You shouldn't really be held back by the plan B. You should work on saying, okay, what do I do? But it's only in very, very important things like a career where you may want to have a backup. If it's about saying, okay, I'm going to go buy a car. If this is not available, I'll get the other one. You're not really going to plan for it as a plan B. So plan A and plan B is more in terms of when it's about your life and outlook towards it. And your single-hearted energy should be about that plan A, rather than being held back by plan B. In my case, actually, my plan A held me back. And why do I say plan A held me back? Because of complacency. Because when I wanted to do that engineering, and I said, engineering admission is going to be such a cakewalk. My dad works with this group, and they'll have the reservation. So maybe it actually acted as a hindrance for me to not even try and realize my potential. Maybe I could have gone through one of the IITs. But since I had this complacency in mind, that okay, I can get there out here, I didn't even try for that. So, but focus on your plan A, when it comes to career. But don't, the most important thing is a lot of you will be coming in from families which will have your own business, you'll have your own land, you'll have something to do, something to fall back on. So that should be your plan B, not your plan A. So take it as that and think of what you can do. Your second question was about engineering and business and maybe mistakes. So, and I'll try and answer it differently. So the first thing is, I think engineering was a great thing because it's not only about building something, it also is about, in a way, instigating your curiosity and thinking about how do things work. So that's what I feel engineering helped me with. Mistakes, I think in terms of mistakes, every mistake is actually a treasure. Because when you commit a mistake, that's when you realize, you learn it. No amount of my telling you will, or anyone else telling you that, if you do this, it's a mistake, will give you the same learning as experiencing it yourself. So I think that's how one should approach these mistakes that you make and learn from them. And typically, in great organizations, if there's a mistake, so what? It's happened. It's not that you did it purposely. So that's how even organizations treat this as. So there will be decisions that happen which are bad. Because not everything is in black and white. It's not 2 + 2 = 4. Sometimes things may not turn out to be the way that you want it to be. But organizations are great because they stand by you and they help you during this moment. So there was a question there as well.
First of all, sir, it's a privilege to have you here. It was really, in all over, to hear interesting life stories and anecdotes. I would just, I that you actually hail from Sangrur. I also happen to be from there, so I would like to know more about your relationship with the city of Sangrur. Also, I would like to know when you in marketing, how do you come up, what do you think of, what kind of connections are you looking for to make with people through advertisements? What are you looking for when you're coming up with ideas? Yeah, thank you.
Great. So, okay, so I'll try and talk about that. So the first one, easy one. So while I hail from Sangrur, I kind of grew up, was born in Chandigarh, grew up a little bit here and there, firstly Nasik and then largely studied in Patiala. But my connection with my hometown still stays. So in fact, after I speak to all of you, I head to Sangrur after this. So I still have family there and to get back there and fond memories as well. The second part that you asked, which is about this aspect about advertising. And within advertising, how do you create the bond with the consumers? What is there? So there are two parts of advertising. Typical advertising is wherein we say what's called one-to-many. So which is the brand which is talking to all of you, and typically the people who are the consumers who don't really have a voice in this. So you're just getting the message, okay, this is my brand, this is what I do, but you don't really have a voice back towards it. Then there is this, and the message is true for everyone. So that's one kind of advertising. But I think what really works is when you can harness the consumer love, or you can actually personalize it. So let's say, I don't know, what's your name, for example? Beg your pardon? Gurmeher, okay. So tomorrow, if maybe there is your birthday, and a brand and someone wants to send you a chocolate with your name on it. Now that's what I will call personalized advertising, saying, okay, happy birthday, Gurmeher. And all of this is possible. It just is about how do you fit the technology behind it. So if that communication can be more one-to-one, because your needs may be different from another consumer's needs, or at least we like to think it that way. And if I can personalize it, and that's what happens a lot with what we call like social media and digital, wherein we're able to personalize the content and communication to the audience. Right now, so this is also part of advertising. So actually what we do, so when we go to like digital places, we are able to figure out which is the consumer who we should target first, which is the consumer we should be giving maybe a 10% discount to for the trial, which is the consumer who will use our blocks, at what frequency should we interact with the consumer. So it's not only about the message, but using, if you can leverage technology, this is also what you can understand. That, okay, how frequently should I reach out to Guru Meher? What should be the kind of communication? And the message is also different. Like, I'll give an example. So if you buy online, what we'll have is somebody who's never tried, and in terms of a campaign with the laughing cow cheese, somebody who's tried cheese but not the laughing cow cheese will get a different message versus somebody who's tried one product. And there the message will be more to say, okay, you've tried the blocks and you found them great. Why don't you try our slices? So that's also about the other nuance around advertising and communication. And then there is one more thing. Sometimes people think, oh wow, what a beautiful film. But the purpose of advertising is to sell. And a good ad is one that actually creates sales. So that's what we try and look at, not just something which will be appreciated as being a great piece of work. It should be something which endears the consumer, forms that bond, allows the consumer to talk back, like what we did with Maggie, wherein the consumers wrote back with the stories. And the consumers were like, okay, now this is our brand. And that's what we did. So if we can get to that stage where the consumers feel this is my brand and I own it, that's the best. But advertising has to sell. And strike a chord.
Good morning, sir. My name is Gunwant, and I wanted to ask, as you said that your grades had gone down in 12th, so I wanted to ask, did you lose hope at that moment? And if you did, how did you gain it back?
Oh, thank you. Great question as well. So, yeah, at that time when I lost grades, so I was like, gosh, what's happening? Just about passing, and it was feeling a little bit in the dumps for a while, I'll be honest with you. And at that time, I said, okay, what do we do? I can't change my grade. The only way I can change my grade is say, okay, I want to reappear for the exam. But what's happened has happened. I think the realization is more about what do you take out of there, and how do you go on forward from there. So it's not about what's happened has happened. So it's more about the way forward. That, okay, now with this, what do I do? So maybe what happened is that I had to work extra hard, because when I would have an interviewer for my admission to an IIM Lucknow or any of the other jobs, they would say, this guy is inconsistent. He had 90% here and he has 60% here. So I can't change that fact. But what I had to work was extra hard to prove myself. And that's what was in my control. To work that extra hard, or to work that extra mile, to be able to prove myself to the person on the other end to select me. And maybe one thing that somewhat related. So I think it's more about your belief and courage. Have you heard of Galileo? I'm sure all of you have. So when he first said that the earth goes around the sun, what happened? Sorry? Yeah, well, they almost were about to, so they had a trial which was on for him, right? They said, this is heresy and what nonsense is this guy talking? But I think, so it's about, if you believe in something, he didn't change his belief, right? He didn't say, no, you guys are going to kill me, so I'm going to turn it around. So it wasn't about a matter of life and death for me. But if you have a certain belief, it's more about then moving on forward from there and taking on from there. Yes, please. Oh, sorry.
Good morning, sir. My name is Gurleen. I wanted to ask, like, in what way did your parents encourage you or help you while you were going through ups and downs in your life?
Well, I think that was, my parents have been an exceptional support all through my life, right from the fact that when I was born, actually my mom gave up her career. She was working in PGI and she gave up her career at that point of time. And it's been a source of immense support for me that she was always around when I would go back home after school. So I was a day scholar, and at part of times in YPS there used to be day boarding. And I think not only the parents, but even my grandparents, the one thing that they always kept telling me is, it's okay, we always love you for who you are, and we'll always be there with you. You tell us how we can support you. And it's not more in terms of, and that's what helped me, that okay, fine, so what, something has happened. They would always have their guidance, maybe you can try this, maybe you can apply for this particular exam or do this, and have their suggestions to stand by me. And that's what helped me regain my feet whenever I would stumble. So to date, I still speak with them quite often. They live in a different city, but whenever there is some pressure, you can always open up and you'll never be judged. That's what family and parents do. Yes, please.
Sir, my question is, what exactly are you taught in MBA and how do they teach? Like they give assignments, they held lectures, or they give you case studies? And my question is, how difficult is it, like the entrance exam and the degree itself? And my last question is that should a company care more about its consumers or should it care more about its profits?
Okay, wow. Lots of great questions. So the first one, which is about an MBA. So an MBA is not exactly one degree at times, because within an MBA you may have different fields of study. You have marketing, which is to do with the consumer. You have operations, which is to do with what's the best way of running a factory. For example, how do you plan your resources, material planning, etc. You have something which is finance, which is about, maybe you hear about the way banks are run, or something called mergers and acquisitions. That's another one. There is human resources, which is about how do we take care of our people. So and then there's systems, which is about an ERP thing. So within an MBA, there are different streams. So you have one degree, but you may have what's called a specialization. So like you have an engineering, and within engineering, I had civil, which was making buildings, or there's computers, which is software. So within the MBA, there are these other specializations. The difference in maybe an MBA versus, I think I'll take maths. Maths 2 plus 2 will always be 4. But in an MBA, it will not necessarily be that if you do this, this is what will happen. It's more a combination of, like if I talk marketing, an art and a science. So there is one aspect of science, and then there is a little bit of a art to it. And when it comes into education, most great institutes, the way they teach it is more through a case study. So there'll be a business case which says, okay, there's a hypothetical company or a real company. Like we've had cases also written on some of the work we did. So there's a real company, this is the situation that they're facing, this is their profits, this is what's happening. And depending upon, and that case can be depending upon, okay, I don't know, some strike happened, for example, that'll be an HR case. Or it'll be to say this is a business problem, that'll be a different case. So a lot of the teaching on MBA is typically case-based, which is how you learn a lot, and then there is a theory around that. The entrance exam for an MBA is not very, very difficult. It is, at least it used to be in those days, logical reasoning and comprehension based. So as long as you can sit down and apply logic, that's all that was needed. But it's about not losing your head during that exam. That's what the MBA is about. So if you want to do it, one can easily do it, and it's not difficult at all. It's not like sometimes people say a CA and all where the studies are very difficult. MBA, it's more the selection in terms of the top schools. There are fewer people who get through, but the exam is not tough. And the other thing that you asked was, as a business, what should you focus on, which is profit or the consumer? So, a business exists for, of course, making a profit. But if there's no consumer, there is no profit. So what's most important is always and always to be honest to your consumer. You'll sell something substandard. Today, you'll get that profit. Tomorrow, will you get it? You won't. You go to a restaurant. Today, you go to a restaurant, whichever one you eat out here. You'll eat there because the food was good. It was good value for that money. Tomorrow, if the quality comes down, the very next day, you won't get there. So for a sustainable growth, what's important, and it's therefore companies which sustain for years and years, they focus on their consumers. They be true to it in terms of giving the best quality product at a certain price, which consumers value. And at the same time, they make sure that they are profitable, because if they're not profitable, they can't run and pay the bills. So it's an and strategy. Okay? Tell me.
Sir, if a person wants to learn multiple things like marketing, management, finance, investment, so how many categories he can do maximum in an MBA degree?
So this actually depends a lot college to college, but typically you can do at least 2 majors. You can do 2 majors because it's about a certain number of, so when you, typically the first year in an MBA is largely common. The second year is the year when you get into your specialized courses. And then you have a requirement of fulfilling X number of credits, which is about how many subjects you choose. So you can do about 2 specializations. And within the first few months itself, one starts to realize what's your flair for. And in most of the courses like engineering or MBA, you also have an internship. So the internship gives you also a good idea at that time to say, okay, what's my aptitude like? What is it that I'll enjoy? There are also people, professors, counselors around who help you decide what you want to do. Yes, please. Yeah, why don't you try in the meantime? Come on, if you had your breakfast, you like. Maybe how will it be personalized and how do they address the same and also the same audience that they are working with. I think a corporate cannot afford to be dehumanized in the long run, because if they cannot connect with the consumer, then a consumer will not care for them. It's not just about the fact that I get a certain value, and I'll talk of it maybe again as an example of our services as a restaurant. So tomorrow, you may go to a restaurant which will have the best of food, and you'll say it's a steal deal what I'm getting there for 200 rupees. But if the person there, he doesn't act with you humanely and says, and acts and speaks to you in a very, very gruff, impolite manner, will you ever go there? You won't. So actually, corporates and organizations have to be very, very careful that they don't rub off a consumer. And once a consumer is rubbed off, he or she will go out and tell 20 people. You liked the food, you will still not tell someone. You had a bad experience, you will go out and like spread it to the world and put it on your social media saying, tag this, tag that, this is what happened. So regardless of anything, a corporate or a company cannot do that. Now the trick is, how do you do the opposite, which is create what I call loyalty beyond reason. So it's not only about brand loyalty, but loyalty beyond reason. And that's what can only happen when you start to go beyond what's called a functional benefit to what's called an emotional benefit. So for example, if I take the example of one of the brands I worked on, which is Maggi. So Maggi used to talk about 2 minutes or a great tasting meal in 2 minutes. Now that's a functional benefit, that in 2 minutes something can happen. But the emotional benefit is, we said, okay, within 2 minutes, it's not only about a great tasting meal, it's about a smile on your face. Now that's an emotional benefit. And that's what you may resonate with. Or we said, okay, while everyone makes Maggi, your Maggi is special. Tell me how you did it. So it's about, therefore, making that emotional bond, which is beyond the functional bond. And that's what we do. Or that's what marketing could help in terms of creating the loyalty beyond reason. Yeah, any? Oh, there's one lady just behind you, ma'am.
Good morning, sir. This is Gulnoor. So, regarding careers like marketing and business, usually it is said they are considered as to be very unstable and erratic. So, usually people prefer like stable jobs, of course. Like even you, as an example, you never kept marketing or business as your plan A or your first priority. Even you wanted to become an engineer because that even you was a stable job. So, do you think that this is just a perception or a misconception? Because if yes, then would you advise us youngsters to keep marketing and business as our plan A or our priority?
Great question. So, when I was your age, I didn't know the career options that existed. I only knew 2 to 3 things. You do engineering and become an engineer. You study medicine and become a doctor. Or, arts, you don't really know what happens after that. Again, I'm just telling you what I knew. It's not true like that. Huh? Or you knew and said, okay, there is the army. So there were like these 3, 4 things that we just knew. And in a way, now things are different. Now you have a lot more access. You can just go to Google, say, okay, what happens in a career like this? What happens in a career like this? So when I made my thought, I had somewhere I should do an MBA. What will it bring to me? Not clear. I just knew, okay, it can get an acceleration to my career. So that's how I saw an MBA at that time. And I said, let me start by doing an engineering, but do an MBA later. And I think, unfortunately, what's happened is that in the place where we are based, which is Punjab, there are hardly any corporates. And when there are hardly any corporates and most jobs are around engineering or medicine or other careers like this, one thinks of them as the first choice. And one may think that marketing is actually an unstable job, but it's not so. I spent more than a decade in my first organization, which is Nestle. And when I had my orientation out there, the orientation was held by people who are retiring from Nestle. And when you go in an MBA, this is what I also had. People work 2 years, 3 years, and I said, am I in the wrong place? People are retiring from here. And I've heard of people switching jobs. So I think sometimes a lot of this is a misconception because we may not know. And it's about what you want to make of yourself. And where do you see yourself 5 years or 10 years down the line? What would you like to do? And what's maybe defining what your purpose in life could be and how and what could help you get there. So I think that's what it is. So marketing or MBA is a great career option. It's not the only career option. It's a great career option, but you shouldn't think that, okay, it's not stable. It's well-paying. It allows you to, if somebody, when you're working with people, that's what more marketing is. If you want to be more a scientist, that's different. If you want to create something, that's more engineering. So they can be different fields which are offering different things. So I would say, please clear if any of you else also have the misconception like myself when I was there, that since there are fewer jobs in this, maybe the number of jobs is fewer in total, and this may not really be a long-term option. Actually, companies value you, and that's how, even right now, I would get, with all humility, lots of offers saying, come on, join in here or there. But that's not what I would want to do. I want to continue the creation that I'm doing. So the scope is great. And you must be hearing and reading about sometimes what placements happened from so-and-so college and the salary. So all those things are there. So it's a great option and a great stepping stone for the future. Thank you all for being a wonderful audience. It's once again my privilege to be there for the inaugural Vidya Vinay Veerta talk, and I hope you enjoy it. Please do reach out through your IOSA if you would have any other questions or any other way I can help you still.
Thank you so much, sir. Your story about your life and career journey has indeed been inspirational. We realize that life comes with its own hardships, challenges, and victories, and that focus and hard work are imperative to reach where you want to be. I'm sure everyone here today will take away this valuable message. Vidya, Vinay, Veerta is what we Advendrians aim to incorporate in our lives and hope to carry forward in our hearts wherever we may go in the future. Thank you, sir, for hearing us and encouraging us to voice our queries. I now request IOSA Executive, Mr. Adish Bajaj, to speak a few words and propose a vote of thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Hello, YPS. How are you? Good. At the outset, let me thank you all for being here this wonderful morning. We are privileged to have you amidst us, Mr. Alamjit Singh Sekhon. It's an honor to invite you. He has come all the way from Mumbai for this special occasion. The reason for his being here is his love for his alma mater, that is our own school, YPS Patiala. Much inspiring, every single word was pure enjoyment. My gratitude to you, Mr. Alamjit, and we at IOSA truly appreciate the time spent so well. Enriched, sir. We owe you special thanks for being here with us this morning. I feel equally privileged in the august company of Director Sir Major General Sanjeev Verma, staff, and above all, the children. Not to forget a special thank you to Tina ma'am and Mr. Amarjot Gill, one of the board members. Our president, Colonel RPS Barad, who is out of town, has sent special greetings for this occasion. Thank you all. Thank you once again, Mr. Alamjit Singh Sekhon. Proud of being Yadvindrian, proud of being one of you. God bless you all. Now, we have a small token of appreciation here for you, Mr. Alamjit. Please accept it with sincere thanks. May I request to please be here? Dr. Mona. And I would rather request the director, sir, to be with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I now request our school director, Major General Sanjeev Verma, to present a token of appreciation and gratitude to our guest speaker. Thank you so much, sir.
After you, sir. Come.
It gives us great happiness to share that Mr. Alamjit Sekhon sir has been very gracious and generous to send us all some samples of Laughing Cow cheese which will be given out to all students of classes 9th to 12th before they leave the school premises today. The faculty and administrative staff shall be handed over theirs tomorrow, and the alumni of the Golden and Silver Jubilee batches will be handed over their bags on the day of their reunion, that is the 12th of November. We, on behalf of everyone, thank you, sir, for being here with us today. And a special thank you for your kind gesture. I request our guests to kindly join us for a cup of tea in the VIP lounge. Students are requested to stay seated till the guests leave. Thank you, sir.